بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وآله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا كثيرا. فما بعد, my dear brothers and sisters, many times people ask this question about the position of social work and of reformation and reformative work in Islam. I remind myself and you that there were two things that used to happen during the times of Muslim rule, during the times of the Khilafah, even after the Khilafah had been turned into a hereditary monarchy. But some of the elements of the spirit of the Khilafah remained right to the end. And among them was this fact that the state took responsibility for reformation and for social work. So the state was a kind of welfare state, like we see in some Western countries today, like Canada or the United Kingdom or Australia and New Zealand, where the state takes care of a lot of the general needs of the people. Another place where we see this in Muslim countries is in most of the Arab world, where the state takes care of medical aid, of education, and in places like Kuwait, even of food. The price of bread, the price of khubz is subsidized in Kuwait so that it's extremely cheap and it's available to absolutely anybody. Medical aid, for example, in these countries, in Saudi Arabia, in Qatar, in Kuwait, and so on, it is not only free for citizens but also for people who are permanent residents there. Now, please don't catch my neck for saying this. If I am wrong, I am wrong. I know from what I know of people who live in those places. Definitely in Qatar and Kuwait, I know. In Saudi also, I think it is true that even for permanent residents, its medical aid is either free or highly subsidized. And if I am wrong, then I apologize. Maybe the rulers must listen to this and make it subsidized and free for their people, for people who live there on a permanent basis, permanent residents as well. The point I'm making is that medical aid is of extremely high quality. Alhamdulillah, I have in my travels, I've never actually been sick any time, but I did go to visit the hospitals in these places, some of these places, and I was very impressed with the quality of medical aid that is provided by the state. The point I'm making here is that the question people ask is what was the system? So the state took care of a lot of the needs, general needs of people, which general needs of people, which is sometimes in many other countries it's taken care of by NGOs. So we do not see the development of NGOs in the Islamic world during the time of the Khilafah, all the way until the last of them, the Ottoman Khilafah, was it ended in 1923-24. Until then, we do not really see the emergence of NGOs because there was no need. The state took care of that. They took care to the extent that in some cases the state took care of it, and to some extent, to think about this, I mean, in the Ottoman period, uh, they used to have bird baths. They used to have water for birds during the summer. This was provided by the state, and there were little stone receptacles, very attractive, which were placed in different places, and regularly they were filled with water for small birds. In Aleppo, in Syria, there is a cat trust, a waqf for cats, because in Islam we don't. Islam does not allow you to just kill an animal because it is old. If it is sick and if it is dying or something, then you can do that. But just because it is old and infirm, you're not allowed to just kill it. You know. But the thing is that a lot of these cats were stray cats, so they would be old and so on. So there was a wonderful lady, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a means of her forgiveness and Jannah, who had a huge house. So she set up this whole house. She donated this house, made a waqf for it. She kept a sheikh there in this house, whose job was to train people and keep them and to look after these cats and so on. And there was enough money there to ensure that these old cats were taken care of and they were given food and so on and so forth. So focus towards general good has been a very signal and fundamental principle of Islam, always. The reason I'm saying this is in our lesson today on the wisdom of Luqman alayhi salam, we are looking at the issue of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar, and we are looking at what is it that we need to do and the importance of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar. So the point I want to make for you is that enjoining good and forbidding evil is not simply restricted to the halal and haram in Islam. This is very much a part of that. It is a very important and significant part of that. But at the same time, it is not restricted to that. Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar, enjoining good and forbidding evil, extends to everything that relates to human life, as well as to the lives of all those creatures that we share the planet with, as well as to the welfare and well-being of the planet itself. All of these things come under the subject of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar. So therefore, when we think about this, let us keep this in mind, that it extends to all of this. So somebody who is creating a hospital, including, for example, like I said, this trust to look after old cats, and so on and so forth, it's something that any kind of good work would be, inshallah, part of this. Now, one of the big elements, and this is now the tough element, of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar is the fact that sometimes unpalatable truths have to be spoken. And the problem with our world, and not just today, I mean, this is sometimes we tend to become because we are very close to the incident, we are living this life. So if for example, if I were to hold my hand very close to my face like this, then I would not be able to see anything in the world. I would probably not even be able to see the lines on my palm if I hold my hand too close to my face, because perspective is a function of distance. But when we are living in a particular time, whatever the time is, the tendency is that we start to imagine, may not be consciously and deliberately, but we certainly act as if we imagine as if time begins and ends with us. So everything which happens, we think that this is, well, if it's good, then you say, oh, we are the best and most highly developed and wealthiest and most powerful and so on. And on the contrary, if that's not the case, then we feel that we are the most oppressed and we have the worst situation. If we read history, and that's why history is a very big interest of mine. when you read history, you realize that this is not the case at all. This is almost like Aristotle said, there's nothing new. Everything is a repetition of something which happened before. And maybe that's, give it a little bit of poetic license if you like, but that's, I think, more or less quite an accurate description of reality. That everything is more or less a repetition of what happened before. If you look at, if you read periods of history, then you realize both that there were periods when people in the world at that time were much happier, much healthier, much more powerful, and so on and so forth than we are today. And on the contrary, there were people who are much worse off than we can imagine. Generally speaking, if we take macro parameters of judgment, then believe it or not, no matter how sad you might be with what is happening with COVID, no matter how sad you might be with the political situations in different parts of the world and so on, believe me, today we are much, much, much better off than we have been. We, meaning humanity, has been in the past. I won't say ever in the past, because if you go too far back in the past, we don't have absolutely accurately preserved details. But definitely, if we go back, 2, 3, 4, 5 centuries in the past, we today are better off than we have ever been. And so this is something to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. There's something to thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for. Now you might say, how do I say that with respect to COVID? Well, when I'm looking at COVID, if I compare that to the Black Plague, which happened in Europe and in other places, then COVID looks like a Sunday school picnic. COVID is very bad, and we must definitely take a lot of precautions against it. We are getting news of people who we know, right, close to us, who we know, friends who have contracted COVID, and some of them who have passed away with COVID. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala have mercy on them. The point is that this is something which is very important for us to think about and keep in mind, and say that even though this is happening, there were times which were much worse. So Alhamdulillah, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ala kulli hal, in whichever situation He kept us. So the reason I'm mentioning all this is because one of the major elements of Amr bil Maruf and Nahi anil Munkar, of enjoining good and forbidding evil, is to actually say it or do something about promoting good and preventing evil. In terms of promoting good, as I mentioned, doing these kinds of good works of all kinds, of course, this is highly commendable, must be done. And having said that, this is also comparatively easier. And for example, if you were to set up a trust to take care of old animals, I mean, nobody's going to fight you for that. Nobody's going to criticize you for that. People will probably applaud you. You probably have a newspaper reporter or a local TV channel guy who will come and take an interview of you and so on. So these things are nice to do. And by all means, please do that. I mean, I'm not against it. I'm just saying this is good. But if you were to stand up and speak against an injustice that is being perpetrated, then you get into troubled waters. Then you get into difficult grounds. Because by definition, injustice is perpetrated by those who have power. So when you are speaking against injustice, you are speaking against those in power. As somebody says, how do I know who is in power? Somebody asked this person, how do I know who is in power? He said, just look at who cannot be criticized. Just as look at who cannot be criticized. And when you are enjoining good and forbidding evil, especially forbidding evil, you have to necessarily stand up against somebody who is in that, within quotes, cannot be criticized. Now, one very important thing to remember, or two very important things. First, for this world, remember that there were many people like this. All through history, there were many people like this who in their time could not be criticized, who in their time were powerful and by the look of it could do absolutely anything they wanted. Nobody could touch them, right? Where are they today? Where are they today? And the second thing to remember is that no matter how powerful that individual might be, there is one who is more powerful than him or her, and that is the one who created them. And that is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So on the day of judgment, when we go stand before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we are going to be standing before the one who nobody is more powerful than. Which brings me to the hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, narrated by Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radiyallahu anhu, where Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, he is reported to have said that if any of you, if any of the believers, if any of you sees anything evil, then let him stop it with his hand. If he sees anything evil, let him stop it with his hand. And if he is unable to do that, then let him speak out against it. And if he is unable to do that, then let him hate it in his heart. And this third thing, that is, you have not spoken out against it, and you have not stopped it with your hand, and you have not spoken out against it, but you hate it in your heart. Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that this is a sign of the weakness of your iman. Now this is very, very important to understand, that even though you are distancing yourself from that thing, even though you hate it in your hand, but you have not stopped it, you have not attempted to stop it, and you have not spoken out against it, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam called this a weakness of faith. He said this is a weakness of your iman. And obviously this is a weakness of iman because the reason why you did not stop it and you did not do that were a result of fearing the world and the people of the world more than we fear the displeasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. May Allah protect us. I know it is easy to say these things, it is much more difficult to live by them, but we must make an effort and we must ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to save us from tests and to give us the strength to stand up against those tests. Now, very interesting that the same person who narrated this hadith, Abu Sa'id al-Khudri radhiyallahu anhu, he narrates a very interesting story about Abdul Malik bin Marwan, the Khalifa of Banu Umayyah, who changed the order of the khutbah and salah in the Salatul Eid. Now, as you know, in Jum'ah, we have the khutbatul Jum'ah first and then followed by the salah. But in the Eidain, in the two Eids, we have the salah first followed by the khutbah. Now, the khutbah is not wajib, it is mustahab, it is recommended to sit and listen to the khutbah, but if somebody leaves, then their Salatul Eid is not invalidated as it would be if somebody deliberately did not listen to the khutbah of Jum'ah, then his Salat of Jum'ah is faulty, but not so in the Salatul Eid. So therefore, because Abdul Malik bin Marwan was not very popular, people used to leave, they would go away. So to prevent that, he decided to change the order, and he started, instead of praying the Salatul Eid first, he started speaking, he started making the khutbah. So a man stood up, and there is some random individual, normal citizen. He stood up and he said that what you are doing is against the sunnah of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Abdul Malik bin Marwan, in his arrogance, he said that sunnah is not valid anymore. So the man sat down. He did not say anything after that. Now Abu Sayyid al-Khudri radiallahu anhu, he said, he witnessed this incident, he was also there, and he said the man has fulfilled his responsibility. Now, and therefore that for that man, Abu Sayyid al-Khudri radiallahu anhu was the best witness that he could have had, because Abu Sayyid al-Khudri radiallahu anhu is also the narrator of this particular hadith. Now in Surah Luqman, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about in terms of the advice that Luqman alayhi salam gave to his son. He said that enjoin good and forbid evil, and this is among the most important of the umur, of the matters. So therefore we know that if one has the power to stop something with his hand, he must do that. If he does not have power and executive authority, then he must raise his voice against evil, no matter what it costs him to do that, whether this is by speaking or by writing or by some other means. He must not fear to be isolated, he must not fear being isolated, because the one who is isolated based on the obedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will be isolated on the same basis on the Day of Judgment in a place of honor. So if you want to be selected on the Day of Judgment and put in a place of honor, then you should be prepared to be selected in this world because you spoke out against injustice. And always remember that Allah is the best protector for anyone. And that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also told us, stand up as witnesses to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even if it is against yourselves and against your parents and your people who are near and dear to you, whether they are rich or poor. The famous ayat of Surah An-Nisa. And Allah says Allah is a better protector of both than yourself. So this is very important for us to remember that. So a person must speak out, and a person must say what he knows to be the truth, and he must speak out raising whatever medium is available to him. Speaking out once fulfills the requirement. It does not. If he does more, that's his choice. Speak out in a way that people will be attracted to that speech. The object is to get them to listen. So do whatever it is that works for you, as long as that is within the scope of the Sharia. So please remember that. And don't do something which is by itself prohibited in the name of enjoining good and prohibiting what is forbidden. Now, this is why it's one of the most important tasks. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave this is of the task to the Anbiya alayhi salam, and in Surah An-Nisa, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, رُسُلًا مُبَشِّرِينَ وَمُنذِرِينَ لِأَلَّا يَكُونَ لِلنَّاسِ عَلَى اللَّهِ حُجَّةٌ بَعْدَ الرُّسُلِ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَزِيزًا حَكِيمًا. Messengers as the bearers of good news as well as of warning, in order that mankind should have no plea against Allah. Mankind should have no excuse against Allah, should have no plea against Allah after the coming of messengers. So before the coming of the messenger, maybe people could have said, well, I did not know. But after the coming of the messenger, nobody can say that I did not know. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the Muslim Ummah the best nation ever raised up for mankind in order to do this task. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, Kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat linnas. In Surah Al-Imran, Allah said that you are the best of people and you have been extracted and selected for the benefit of people. Ukhrijat linnas. Ta'muruna bil ma'rufi wa tanhawna 'anil munkari wa tu'minuna billah. What is this nature of benefit to people? Enjoining good, you enjoin good, you forbid evil, and you have faith in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala defined for us the purpose of our creation and what we are obliged to do in this life. If the Muslims fail to do their duty of enjoining good and forbidding evil, then corruption will spread throughout the ummah, throughout the people, throughout the Muslim community, and throughout the world. And may Allah forgive us, we would become deserving of the punishment of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. I ask Allah to protect us from His punishment. Today, this is exactly what we are seeing. The Muslims who were supposed to enjoin good and forbid evil have joined in that good and have joined in the evil. They have, instead of stopping the evil, they have joined in the evil. Instead of promoting good, they are now promoting and committing oppression. Muslims were supposed to say, take for example our ostentatious weddings. What is it we are doing? We are participating in evil. We are committing evil and we are participating in evil. May Allah protect us. Even our ulama, even our scholars, they do not feel any sense of shame in accepting these invitations to these ostentatious weddings, and they go there and they eat the biryani and they eat all the food and they sit there, and may Allah protect us. Maybe their presence there becomes a dalil for others, and people point a finger and say, well, if it was forbidden, how is it that so and so was there and so was there, and this person heads this Muslim body and that person heads the other Muslim body, or this Darul Uloom and that Darul Uloom? How is it that is possible, right? I remember, may Allah protect us from ourselves. I remember a function which was somebody wrote an Islamic book. It was tafsir of some part of the Quran. The person writing the tafsir, Allah knows what qualification he has for writing the tafsir, but he wrote this thing, and this was the function of the release of this book, his book, which was in English. And in this function, there was a big stage, and the function was headed by one of the big scholars of that city who was sitting there. And on the stage at the back was a big banner with the ayat of the Quran written on it. And on the stage was this woman who was singing this ghazal with music and everything else. And these people are sitting there, a function for the release of a book which is tafsir of the Quran, which is attended by one of the big alims of that city, in which something which Rasulullah ﷺ prohibited is being done publicly on the stage, witnessed by this so-called mufassir of the Quran and by this so-called scholar of Islam. And of course, the whole function is full of Muslims. Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. What do you say to this? What do you say to this? In the name of Islam, you do something which is prohibited. And there are many such incidents. I don't want to waste your time by narrating to you the incidents that are brought to my notice. Obviously, I am not there, so I didn't. But thanks to videos, we are eyewitness without having to go to that particular place. My brothers and sisters, fear Allah. Fear the meeting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. One of the best things that COVID did was it made our mortality very clear to us. It brought us very face to face with the fact that we can die and we will die. Fear that day. All that you fear today is less than what will happen when Malakul Maut comes for you and me. And on that day we will have no helpers. Today you will have many people who will sing your tune and so on and so forth, depending on how much power you have. But please, if you as Muslims stop forbidding evil, and if you stop supporting good, then corruption will spread in the land and you will suffer. And you will suffer more than others, because for you that corruption will be as a punishment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We are already suffering. We have been suffering for centuries, right now about 200 or 300 years. How much longer do you want this to happen? And if you ask people, they will tell you, let us look at this group of people and that group of people and learn from this one and that one, and there's all kinds of material solutions, more technology, more this, more that, more social media. We should have a TV channel, believe me, you can have all the TV channels in the world. Right now, as I speak, there are many, many, many TV channels owned by Muslims. What difference does it make? What difference does it make? Until we please Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, until we change our lives, until we change our situation, no TV channel, no news channel, no nothing will make any difference. I'm not against having a Muslim TV channel. Yes, we have to communicate. Yes, we have to propagate what we have to say. Then by all means, use technology, use social media, use papers, and use magazines, and use TV channels and radio channels and all that. But remember, they have to be run by people who have taqwa. They must speak the language of truth, even if it means shutting down if necessary. Right? Think about this. My brothers and sisters, enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil is one of the basic principles of this religion. And doing it requires putting up with difficulties and bearing insults and harm with patience. As Luqman alayhi salam said to his son, Ya bunayya, aqimi salata wa'mur bil ma'rufi wanha anil munkari wasbir ala ma asabak inna dhalika min azmil umur. He said, O my son, establish salah, enjoin on people what is good and forbid people what is evil, and bear with patience whatever befalls you in this process. Verily, these are some of the important commandments ordered by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala without any exception. My brothers and sisters, enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil is an important mission, and so it is essential to be trained in the method of doing it. I know of many dawah training programs, most of them done over weekends, like cookery classes. All of them talk about how to talk, how to start a conversation, how to lead people to ask the right questions, how to make the final sale, that is, accepting of Islam. Many of it approach it from the debating and arguing angle by opening the conversation by essentially telling people how foolish they are to believe whatever they believe other than Islam. But I have yet to see a dawah training program which begins with insisting on tazkiyatul nafs and tarbiyatul akhlaq, which is where every Nabi began. Please understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guided his Anbiya himself. But every Nabi went through not a weekend course, not even weeks or months or even years, but decades of training before they got the ijazah, the hukum in their case, to preach. And that is why their preaching had effect. My brothers and sisters, so also was the case of the Sahaba of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. They went through over a decade of intense, rigorous, and extremely painful training before they reached a stage when one of them, a single person, was enough to spread the message of Islam to entire nations. But today we are more interested in doing a bit of work, wearing t-shirts with slogans and posting selfies on Facebook, and think we are doing the work of the Anbiya. And that is why people go delirious with delight and post many more selfies in their frenzy of celebration if one person accepts Islam. For the Sahaba, it was not one person, it was entire nations. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Udu ila sabili rabbika bil hikmati wal mau'izatil hasana wajadilhum billati hiya ahsan inna rabbaka huwa a'lamu biman dhalla an sabilihi wa huwa a'lamu bil muhtadin." Allah said, invite mankind, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, to the way of your Rabb, to Islam, with wisdom and good preaching. Bil hikmati wal mau'izatil hasana. First the hikmah, then the mau'idah, with wisdom and then with fair preaching. and argue with them in a way that is better. وَجَادِلْهُمْ بِالَّتِي هِيَ أَحْسَنُ. Speak to them, argue with them in a way which is the best. Don't insult them, don't scream at them, don't put them down, don't character assassinate them. Speak to them kindly, beautifully, sweetly. Truly your Rabb knows best who has gone astray from his path, and he is the best aware of those who are guided. Allah mentioned wisdom before preaching, and that is why preparing yourself comes before da'wah. Wisdom is not information, it is not even knowledge. Information is what you get in courses. Like what you're hearing, you're sitting and listening to me here, please don't think this is knowledge. This is information. You're getting information from me, you're getting some information from me, that's it. When you practice, and only if you practice, this information which you get from me or from anywhere else or from reading a book or from going to attending a training course, when you practice this information, it converts to knowledge. Practice is the fire that information must be heated in to convert it to understanding. Knowledge, which then submits to a teacher for correction, converts to wisdom. Without Islah, it is all held together with spit, string and hope, and unravels at the first sight of strain. That is why practice under guidance is critical to all skill training. They don't give a doctor his degree until he undergoes 2 years of internship under guidance. So why and how do we think that we can become preachers and dawat without any internship under guidance? Nobody did this in the past. This is a new phenomenon and a sign of the sickness of mindless followership that we have become the victims of. Those who get serious with Amr bil Maruf and Nahi al Munkar will be rewarded by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in this life and the next. And Allah will support them, where Allah said, وَلَيَنْصُرَنَّ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَنْصُرُهُ إِنَّ اللَّهَ لَقَوِيٌّ عَزِيزٌ الَّذِينَ إِن مَّكَّنَّاهُمْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَقَامُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَآتُوا الزَّكَاةَ وَأَمَرُوا بِالْمَعْرُوفِ وَنَهَوْا عَنِ الْمُنكَرِ وَلِلَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ. Allah said in Surah Al-Hajj, verily Allah will help those who help His cause. Truly Allah is all strong, almighty. Those people, Muslim rulers, who if we give them power in the land, they enjoy iqamati salah, they enjoy establishment of prayers, of salah, and they enjoin people to pay zakat, and they enjoin al-ma'ruf, which is all good, and forbid al-munkar, which is all evil, and with Allah rests the end of all matters of all creatures. Enjoining what is good and forbidding what is evil is a mission which will never end until the day of judgment. It's obligatory upon all the ummah, the rulers, the subjects, the men and the women, each according to his or her circumstances. The Muslim ummah is one nation, and if corruption becomes widespread in it, then all the Muslims are obliged to reform it, to rid it of evil things, and enjoin what is good and forbid what is bad. Rasulullah said, religion is sincerity. So the Sahaba said, Ya Rasulullah, to whom? He said, to Allah, to His book, to His messenger, and to the leaders of the Muslim and their common folk, common people. And this is a hadith in Muslim. My brothers and sisters, if a Muslim is advised to do something good, he should be the first to do it. And if he is forbidden from something evil, he should be the one who keeps furthest away from that. Inshallah, we'll talk about this more in our next lesson. I ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to enable us to do that which is pleasing to Him and to save us from that which does not please Him. Wa sallallahu ala nabiyil kareem wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajmain bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin wa assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.